Our next example is question number 4 about employees. In fact, the document has 3 questions on employee. So this is question number 2 also about employee, question number 3 about employee, but I will solve question number 4 and you try yourself by question number 2 and 3. The question says it consists of 2 parts. First of all, the question consists of part 1, you create the class, and part 2 will create object from this class. Let's create the class first. It says define a class with the following specification. The class name is employee, so it's giving you the name of the class. It has 4 instance variables. First name, which is a string, pay rate, which is double, normal hours, which is double, and extra hours, which is double. Let us do this part first, and then we will come back and continue. We will create a new file, and we will define our class, public class employee, and inside, now at this moment we don't know if the data is public or private. Let us assume that they are just public and define nothing in front of them. Just say string first name, next first name, next double, and one will be for pay rate, and this will be the rate employee is paid per hour, and how many hours, normal hours, did the employee work, and extra hours, how many hours did the employee work for extra hours. So this will be our data members of the class. Next, we need to know what are the methods, and if there is a constructor or not, which methods we need to define, and what is the constructor. So we are done with part A. Now for part B, make the instance variable pay rate private. So it did not mention anything about the other data types. It says only about the instance variable pay rate, make it private, and provide a mutator set and an accessor method get to access this variable. Let us do this, and then we will come back again for this part to see what to write in each method. Now get and set methods for pay rate. So let us write the set method. It is public void set pay rate, and we have to give the new rate as double, and we are going to call it pay rate. And normally this method simply saves the parameter, which is pay rate, into the pay rate that is inside the class. And for the get method, public, now since pay rate is double, so it will return double, and we will have the name get pay rate, and we don't need any input parameter, and since it returns a value, then we have to say return this dot pay rate. Okay. We continue in set method. If the supplied pay rate, which is a parameter, is negative, print an invalid message and do not change the instance variable pay rate. So we need to change the set method. So here we say if the input parameter, which is pay rate, is less than 0, so we will print a message system.out.println, and we will print the parameter pay rate, which is the invalid. We print its value, and then we will say is invalid between bracket negative, and we will say that current pay rate is unchanged. Otherwise, we will change the value for the pay rate by the value supplied in the input parameter. For this variable pay rate, since we have getter and setter for this variable, then we need to make it private. So here we will change this variable declaration into, private. It should be private. And since for the others, the question did not say anything, just leave them public, because if you want to change them or read the values of these variables, we need to access them from outside by using dot. We are done with part number A, so we will go for the next part. In part C, it is required to write a method called calcPay, calculate pay, to calculate the employee pay. So the purpose of this method is to calculate the employee pay by multiplying pay rate by normal hours added to it the pay for extra hours. Remember that we have in the data members, we have pay rate, we have normal hours and extra hours. So this method will multiply pay rate by the normal hours and it will add extra hours. For the extra hours, the pay rate is doubled. So we have to double the pay rate because it's extra hour. The method must retain the pay as a result. So here it does not specify input parameter, but this is a notation. Usually it is used to say that this is the name of a method, not a name of a data member. So there is a return value, which is the result of the calculation. So let us define the method, the calcPay method. So it is public, it returns double, and the name will be calcPay. And now we will see if it needs input parameter or not. But let us first implement the code inside. This is going to return the pay rate multiplied by normal hours plus pay, let's say 2 times pay rate multiplied by extra hours. Why we are multiplying by 2? Because the question says that you have to pay extra double for the double rate for the extra hours. So does it need input or not? Let us say now pay rate, we already have it inside the class. Normal hours, we already have it inside the class, and extra hours, we already have it inside the class. So there is no need to supply an input parameter, so it will be kept empty. Part D, also it's required to write a method called the print that will display the normal hours, extra working hours, and calculated pay amount, like what is shown here as a sample input output. So we will print the name, normal hours, extra hours, and the pay rate, and also how much this person will be paid. So the print method, it is going to be public, and always if a method is printing, the return value is void because there is nothing to return. And the name will be print, and we will see if it needs input parameters or not. So it will print simply the data of the class. And now we need to print the pay amount. And you know that the pay amount is calculated, and we can find this from calcPay, which was defined in here. So this will show me how much this person will be paid. So we can use it and it will be printed as an output. Since all the data we need to print are inside the class, so there is no need for input parameter. Now that's all for the class. Now let us see part 2. Now in part 2 it says write a Java application that asks the user to enter the employee name, pay rate, normal hours, and extra hours work. So this is simple input output. We are going to read from the user. Let us do this portion of this part and then we will come back. Now this is our mini program. I have prepared it earlier. We defined a class called employee test app, so it will test for the employee class. Inside main we have data declaration. So in the data declaration we have a scanner, I have a name, and I have rate, working hours, and overtime hours. These are the three variables, okay, for the employee. We will ask the user, what is your first name? And we will read it into name. What is your pay rate? We will read it into rate. How many hours did you work? We will save it into working hours. And how many overtime hours did you work? We will save it in overtime hours. After that, the question is saying, create an object of type employee of that class you have defined in part 1 and set its values according to the input data. So we will create an object and then we will save the data taken from the user inside this object. So we will create now an object. So here we will say create an employee object. So the name was employee. We will give it the variable employee in small letter. And then we will say new. Remember that we don't have a constructor, so the default constructor is used, which is empty. Now how to store the data? Okay, store the data input, store the user data input into the object. So first is the name. Since the name was public, so we say name is equal to name. Now for the pay rate, remember for the pay rate we defined it private. So let me go and show you that we have defined it private. See, if you go up, see now the name is public, pay rate is private, and the others are public. So if we want to save data inside pay rate, you cannot save it directly. So you cannot say employee.payrate equal to rate, because the name of the variable inside here is called rate. Okay, this will give you syntax error because pay rate is private. So we have to use the bodyguard, which is the setter. So we have to say set pay rate, and we give the new rate as input parameter, and we give the pay rate, which is the rate, as input parameter. Now for the other data, which is the normal hours, simply we use dot, which will be equal to working hours, and for employee dot extra hours, it will be overtime hours. So here we have saved the data taken from the user inside the object. The question also is asking to use this employee object to calculate the pay amount and print the data. Simply what the question is asking is print the data, and with the data print the pay rate. To answer this question, you just simply call the method print. So for this part, print the employee data. So here you say employee dot print, because we define a print method inside the class. Now let us check for errors before we run the program. Remember, we have two files, classes. I have already saved the employee class, so I need to check if there are no errors. So I will compile it, and so after compiling there are errors. Oh yeah, here it should be dot, and I'm writing system, okay, not system, dot, and here m and dot, and here also dot. Let's try again and see. Again, when okay, here we should have semicolon and run it again. Oh, it has a plenty of errors. Where is the error here? It says, oh, pay rate. Okay, by mistake here. And again, we run it now. We don't have any errors in the class employee. Let's go for the test application. Test for errors. Again, we have errors. Where's the errors? No symbol, new scanner, a new scanner. Okay, here it should be in, should not be out. Again, correct the errors name. Oh yeah, it's not called name. The data member was called first name. First name. Run it again and see there are any other error. Overtime. Yes, overtime. T should be capital letter because we defined it this way. And again, we have a problem here. Extra hours. What does it say? It says overtime cannot find symbol. Employee. Yeah, X. Okay. Here we have employee, so it should be employee. And now we don't have any errors. Now we run the program. It is asking what is your name. Now for the name, it will be Ahmed. And for the pay rate, it is 2.5. How many hours did you work? 140. And how many overtime hours did you work? It was 20. And here what's the output? It says here employee name Ahmed, worked 140, and the pay amount is equal to 450. This completes the implementation of the program of the employee.